I want to bring in a couple of experts, criminal defense attorney April Preyar and former FBI and CIA agent Tracy Walder, to talk through some of what we're hearing in court this morning. Great to have you here in person. Tracy, great to see you joining us via Zoom this morning. So I'll start with you, Tracy. The fingerprint question on the cell phone, I can't stop asking it because it doesn't make sense to me. Fingerprints weren't gathered from Maggie's phone. Would that not be key to the prosecution's argument that we, in fact, have Alex Murdaugh's fingerprints on the phone?
I would think that it would be very key, but one of the ways that the defense could probably explain that away is, this is a cell phone that his wife had and he lived with his wife. And so it wouldn't be unusual to have other folks' fingerprints on the phone. And again, to your point, that key question is, how did it end up on the side of the road after it seemingly went dark? And it sounds too, just in listening to the testimony from yesterday, that some steps were taken after when we think Maggie was killed. So who had it in their possession and how did it end up where it ended up? Was Alex Murdaugh's phone tracked into that area? I think that would be some interesting questions to be asking.
This is a tough case for this jury, April. I wouldn't want to be in their seats right now because I think every day the defense and prosecution does a pretty good job of laying out your case, right? So when the prosecution is interviewing their witnesses, you're like, oh, he did it. And then the defense steps up and you go, I'm not so sure. This is going to be really hard. Right now, with the cell phone data, they're trying to indicate spots in the timeline and that Alex may have been in possession of Maggie's phone. Are they doing a good job sharing that evidence with the jury, convincing them that he was there at the crime scene when the murders happened?
I'm not so sure because a lot is still left up to speculation. So I know that they think that there's a 4-minute, I believe, gap between when the son's phone, the wife's phone both went black, and it still gives Mr. Murdaugh time to have not been present. So they have him down by the kennels based on the cell phone data. I'm not sure that that will be enough with all of the other evidence that has come out through other testimony. The kind of sloppy investigation that the police did, the bloody footprints that they can't explain, not knowing how this phone ended up on the side of the road. I think that there's still enough there for the defense to push back and to say, how can you trust these officers? They didn't do a thorough investigation. This cell phone data isn't enough. We don't know that Alex was there at that time. He could have seen his wife and son and still left to go see his mom like he said he did. And that does not put these two guns in his hand that then ended their lives.
All circumstantial evidence. I want to play for both of you and for viewers at home. Much is being made of that audio recording where Alex is talking about the murder scene. He's talking about his son, and he says something to the effect of, I did him bad, or they did him bad. It sort of is back to that Yanni and Laurel thing. We all heard something different. We all hear something different. I want to play it for folks at home. And I believe we have 2 audio clips, one in real time, one that has been slowed down, and why this might be significant. Let's listen.
Sitting here talking today is tough. It's just so bad. It's so bad.
Did you hear they then?
No, sir, I did not.
I don't know what I hear. I hear different things each time. Tracy, let me start with you. If this was, in fact, a confession, and that investigator at the time said he noticed that comment, it raised a red flag, yet he didn't write it down, he didn't follow up with questioning, was that the right move? Does that hamper the prosecution's argument in this case?
So I think it does, Marni. That's a spontaneous utterance. Those are extremely important. Things that potential perpetrators of crime say immediately after are extremely important, and that absolutely should have been noted. And that sort of goes back to the holes that the defense was trying to poke in the gathering of evidence, if you will, and the gathering of the footprints and the fingerprints and the tire tracks and all of that. Not making note of this spontaneous utterance initially is going to be problematic because it is a really excellent piece of evidence, quite frankly.
So if this was a confession, April, why didn't prosecutors lean more into it during opening arguments, make more of a deal of it?
I think they didn't realize the importance of it until the middle of the trial, which happens. You miss things. And I think that they realized in the midst of the trial that this was something they could play with and that they could say, he says, we're going to put our foot down and say that he says, I did him so bad. And they weren't really anticipating that the defense would push back and say, no, it sounds like he said they, meaning they being the killers, may have hurt my son or they did him so badly. But to not follow up, if you actually thought that that was a confession at the time, seems very odd. It seems like they would dig in, push back. What do you mean by that? You did him so bad. How did you do him so badly? Are you meaning how this murder went down? Are you talking about something else? There's no way that the thorough detective would not have followed up with that at the time.
Yep. And what we have not yet seen in court is the prosecution laying out for the jury what they believe was the motive behind these killings, which they say is a cover-up for some of the financial crimes that Alex Murdaugh was facing. Will the jury be able to make that leap is the question, that even if he kills his family, his other crimes don't go away, right? So that's going to be key. April, Tracy, thank you. I'm out of time on this one, but we're gonna move on and continue to follow the trial. Good to see you both this morning. It's always nice to have you here in studio. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.